Good morning. Hello. All right, quick plug for stuff this isn't like the main event, but I'll do a quick plug. So at this church, we do this thing called membership, right? We have a couple of meetings every year, and the deal is with membership that, the ultimate authority over the church does not just rest in Pastor James's hands to do as he pleases and dispense justice and grace and punishment or whatever, but and to spend all the money the way I like. But actually, ultimately, it's in the hands of the membership. You guys have the final say over everything. So we give you guys a vote, and you guys get to come to meetings, and we tell you what we've been up to with all of the gracious donations that have been coming in, and faithful and committed tithing, and we try and give you an update on where the ministry is headed and what things look like. And so we invite you all who feel like this is your home place, whether you're serving and you've been kind of hemming and hawing about membership, or you never even heard about membership. What do you got to do? Do you you cut yourself a little bit in blood? No, we don't do that. But what we do is we have Pastor James hang out in the studio a little bit after service, and I tell you about what we do. It's really not super complicated. We give you what we call a covenant, a membership covenant, and we walk you through what that actually means. What are you really committing to when you sign on the dotted line? And so I'll handle all that cool stuff back there. Questions, just bring them back there. No expectation, just ask away. But if this is your home place, this is the body of believers that you belong with, I really urge you to become a member of the church, because we want the ministry to be represented by who is ministering and being ministered to. That makes the most sense to us. So come on out and do that after church today. Don't forget. You may be tempted to forget because we have such a great message today, but set an alarm. Just get your iPhone out, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do, Google Calendar, I don't care, but do it, okay? Get that done now, and then you don't have to think about it anymore, right? Right. All right. Let's talk about Ruth. Yeah. Did you read chapter 1 of Ruth like Becky said to do this week in the e-bulletin? Did you do that? You should have. If you did, you're going to have an even better experience today, because your pump is all primed, you're ready to go. Mentally, you're like, what has Pastor James got to say about this? What will this add to my life? We've been talking about fellowship, and not just any kind of fellowship, but what we call next level fellowship. Beyond the Dixie cups and the punch and the dusty back room of the church basement, beyond just kind of sitting and being nice and courteous, but next level kind of faithful living, okay? Loyalty, power of commitment. Those are things we've been discussing, right? The power of being a believer and having your life be shaped around something that matters the most out of all other things. That's what we're talking about. And the question a lot of people have is, they don't really ask it because they're not sure how, but it's, how do you get that? How do you end up with that? Because a lot of the time, the idea you have is, well, I'll go to the church program and then I'll have fellowship. Well, you may have fellowship, but to get to that next level of fellowship requires some steps. And it's not always easily spelled out how you get from here to here. How do I have a friend like David and Jonathan had a friend? How am I going to get that friend at church? So that's what we're talking about. And this might be the most important story we look at. We look at the story of Ruth and her mother-in-law, Naomi. And they have a connection that, it's a connection. It's the beginning of a connection, but it's about to go to the next level. And it's got everything to do with something we call sacrifice. So if you read chapter 1, you know that Naomi was a married woman who moved from her home territory in the Israel area, okay? And she moved from there. She was married, and she moved to a place called Moab. And so she has a couple of sons. The sons grow up, become adults, and all in one fell swoop, her husband dies. And then one of her adult sons dies, and then the other adult son dies. And she is having a hard time. She's having a time. Some of you may know something about what that's like. I know most of us know what it's like to lose someone, but a few of you have had the really sad experience of losing someone and then losing someone and then losing someone on top of that. Like it's about as rough as it gets. That's Naomi's life right now. But she has these two daughter-in-laws. That's really the only connection she has, and neither of them have had children. And so she's in this kind of funky predicament. She's not really in her own land. She doesn't have blood relatives there. She just has the two daughters-in-law. Now, the two daughters-in-law are actually, they care about her. They feel for her. And so, as she's getting ready to pack up her things and head back to her homeland, which that's what a lot of people would do in that situation. They just say, I'm ready to go home. Just be at least with people that part of where I came from, something familiar to it. I'll go back there and I'll at least feel like I can kind of belong. And so her two daughter-in-laws follow along after her out on the road, and they say to her, we'll go back with you to your people. We'll go back with you. And she tells them to go home. Why would you go with me, she asks. Am I going to have any more sons that could become your husbands? That's kind of an odd thing to say to somebody. But the truth is, these ladies, and I say ladies, they may have been just teenagers, okay? But they really don't have any future ahead of them to just wander off to some place they've never been to before to be foreigners. Their real future is to go back to their people, their families, who they may have a chance at having their own family. They may have a chance at a future. They may have a chance at having property and having a sense of belonging with people they know and know them. And so she tells them, you should just go home. No. Here's the thing. Naomi is headed to a place kind of like home. She has a claim to some land through her husband's family. There's a claim, because there's a claim. Now you think, oh, that's great. She's going to go back there and she's going to, there's a house and a nice cabin waiting. No, there's just some land. Oh, there's going to be all these No, I'm not. There's none of that. There's just some land. And she's going to try and go back and sell it. But here's the catch. You can't just go selling land to any old person you want to. Back then it was serious business to keep the land in the family name so that the name of the father and the father before that and father could continue. So they had all these laws set up. So she couldn't just go back and just sell her land to the highest bidder. She had to go back and find her next kinsman, her closest kinsman to her husband, and he had the first dibs on being able to buy that. And if he chose to, he might, and there might be some sort of arrangement, and she'd get money, but maybe she could still stay, and something like that. But that could take forever, because if he said no, then she'd have to go find the next one. And the next one. She's just going back with nothing. What's she going to... they don't have much of a plan. So she talks the first girl out of it. Yeah, okay, I'll go back. I'll go back. But Ruth is different. Naomi tells her, your sister-in-law is going back with her people and her gods. Go back with her. And listen to this girl. She says, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Then listen to this. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me. There's just no scenario where I'm going to choose my own future, my own comfort, my own personal dreams at your expense. If you're off wandering around in the no man's land, scavenging for food, which is basically what their plan was, by the way, okay? If that's you, then I'll be right there with you. If it's out there, you're out there starving to death, I guess I'll be out there starving to death with you. If I ever have a family again, you'll be in it. If I ever have a house again, you'll be living there too. If you're a praying, then I guess we're both a praying. And if we're a dying, then I guess we're getting buried next to each other. Same piece of real estate. That's how it's going to be. And just to show you how serious she is, she basically just made a covenant at the end of it. She invites God to deal with her, be it ever so severely. It's going to take a lot for me to say, may God deal with me ever so severely if I don't follow. No, wait a minute. Let's rethink this. This is serious. So you know how much business she means. She asks God to hold her accountable. You have to recognize how rare that is. You do. You do. Okay? How many friends do you know that would make a career choice based on what you need in your life? Somebody just laughed. Why? Because that never happens. People don't do that, right? How many friends would put their relationship prospects on the back burner, maybe forever, so that they will go through this hard thing with you so you don't have to be alone? Like, who does that? Ruth does. Most people have a line for their friendships. The line is set somewhere around here, and it's called personal cost. Right? Everything up to that line, the friendship is based on convenience. Right? Well, I'm headed here with my life, and you're headed there with your life, and we both seem to be kind of meshing right now, so as long as we're kind of heading in the same direction, we might as well be friends. But Ruth walks out past that line to this crazy zone that most people don't go, called sacrifice. Everywhere past that line is just love out there. It's just risk. You don't know what's going to happen. She knows if she stays there, chances are pretty good she's going to get remarried. Her family can arrange a thing. They know somebody out there who knows somebody, and he's got good standing, and maybe they'll make a great life together. She has none of that where she's about to go. The sad truth is, not too many people will venture out there in your entire lifetime. Risk their personal dreams to do what they feel is good in God's eyes. Like, what? Man. That's what makes this next level. What's about to take place is going to be next level. Seems like she's about to spend her life all, frivolously. But you really should read how this turns out. Because, they go, like I said, there's not much of a plan. Actually, here's the plan. They're going to pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor. Ruth's going to go out and do this. I'm assuming Naomi's a little older, or she'd be out there too. It sounds like Naomi's, gotten on in years, and this is out in the heat is not her thing. She's going to collapse or something. We don't know. But that's the plan. When they harvest the grain, sometimes a few heads of barley fall off and they get forgotten. And that was a thing back then. They'd go out there and look for a little, there's a head somebody missed, and it wasn't all that safe either, because, if you're in bad shape, especially as a woman back then, a younger woman, probably attractive, you're out there and you're just at the mercy of all these people out there who know you don't have anything, you don't belong to anybody. It's not like a fun proposition. But Naomi, get this, had a relative on her husband's side from the clan of Elimelech, a man of standing whose name was Boaz. And I love this phrase. As it turned out, Ruth found herself working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. Imagine that. First field she picks, first field she finds. It's this guy she's got this sort of legal relationship to very distantly. Maybe this guy will have some kind of, kindness toward them. And he's kind. They treat her like she's another worker. It's a really big deal for them to have this safety. At least they're not going to, do something they shouldn't do and leave us in the woods someplace, right? This is a big deal. And guess what? The guy is impressed with Ruth's character. Yeah, I've been told all about what you've done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. This is apparently famous news because nobody does this. How you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before. He's impressed. As it turns out, Boaz has got some character himself, all right? Ruth gets all this kindness, is surprised they treat her as well as they do, and nobody's, made any moves or done anything inappropriate or anything like that. They're just kind to her. They let her eat some of what the other workers are eating. I mean, that was just unheard of. And so she's coming back with food, and of course she tells Naomi all about, this is where I've been, this is where I was, and I found this, and it's pretty good, right? And of course she knows who it is. When Naomi hears who it is and what he's like, she says, hot diggity dog. That's what she says. No, she didn't say, maybe she did, but Naomi sees an opportunity. Opportunity has knocked. We're going to find you a husband, sweetheart. We're going to find you a husband. And so, listen, I'm not saying I support the plan. I'm just saying what the plan was. That's what the Bible's doing, is just saying what happened, all right? So Naomi says, look, this is what you're going to do. You know where he's going to be out in the field in the little threshing cabin, whatever they've got out there, and they're going to be sleeping, and you just figure out where he's going to be in the daylight. Don't let him see you, okay? You figure out where he's going to be sleeping. And then what you're going to do is you're going to tiptoe into the area, and this is what you're going to do. Boaz has been very willing to share, so you're just going to find out if he's willing to share a blanket. It's in there. I can't make this up, okay? Maybe Boaz likes to snuggle, okay? That's what this is about, right? And so, I'm just saying, so that's what she does. Now, this is proof that Boaz has some character. So Boaz recognizes, oh, she's interested in me. Really interested. And she talks about, you could claim, we could be a thing. You could claim me if you were willing. I want to be with you. Now, there are many lesser men who might take advantage of that. She has no standing, she has nothing to her name, and she's basically throwing herself at him. How many men might take advantage of that in the next day? But, actually, I've been thinking, we're really not in alignment, we're not really, and by some miracle, this man's different. And this is what he says to her. He says, all my fellow townsmen know that you are a woman of noble character. And although it is true that I am near of kin, there is a kinsman redeemer nearer than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to redeem, good, let him redeem. But if he's not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Just lie here till morning. See, there's a chance that someone else has a closer claim to actually be able to marry her, and this is the guy he is. He's like, we're not, if this is going to be a thing, we're going to do it right. We're going to do it so when you're out and about in town, you can hold your head up high. He has the opportunity to do what he wants in the moment, and he's like, no, we're going to jump through all the right hoops. So he goes and finds out if the other guy wants to do this, and he's, no. I think he kind of tries to talk him out of it. Honestly, just throwing my own 2 cents in there. But he sacrifices this opportunity to do what he wants in the moment, to do what he believes is good and right. As it turns out, the guy says no, they get married, she has a son. And this is fun. And they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. David, who's that? Remember the guy we talked about a few weeks ago? The guy who slayed the giant? Remember him? Got chased around by the, insane king, and he held his ground. Remember that guy? Comes this beacon of faith for the entire country. Ruth's grandma. So this sacrifice, do you know what a sacrifice is? Really? I mean, could you define it? It's when you take something that you could use for anything. You get options, you got time, use it any way you want. You got 24 hours in a day, all yours to spend. You might have some money, you might have some resources, you might have some connections, you might have something. You might just have mental focus, energy. And you say, I know I could do that, but this is what I'm going to do with it. And only this. Because I believe that's what God wants. I'm setting aside this as a gift for God to do His will through it somehow. Whatever He wants to do, may God do it with my time, with my money, with my energy, with my enthusiasm, whatever I've got. May God do what He wills. And not having any idea what it'll bring. But having all kinds of ideas about what you won't experience in the meantime. That was Ruth. But what's amazing about sacrifice is how sacrifice, it always seems to turn out, doesn't it? We forget that part. But look at the sacrifice of Naomi just as an example. She sacrifices her personal future dreams, whatever you want to call it, just to do what's good in this moment. And God takes that sacrifice, and first, right away, she turns her into a best friend of Naomi. Right away. I mean, how could you be any less of a friend than that? That's the best friend you're going to have. And the scripture even says later, Ruth has been better than 7 sons to you, Naomi. This is amazing. So right away, Naomi gets a friend. But more than that, Ruth actually is able to have a relationship with a man who is probably, honestly, better than anyone she was ever going to find, because he's a man of integrity. And how would she ever have met such a man of integrity had she not displayed the integrity that it took to get her to that place in the first place? So already, it's turning out. But not only that, Ruth's sacrifice turns into a home. Not just a home with the woman that she cared so much about, and it turns into a son. And not just a son, but a son that Naomi gets to take care of and becomes like the light of Naomi's life for the rest of her life. She has this renewed sense of purpose and excitement, and she's gone from mourning to having hope for the future. But more than that, because this is what God does with sacrifices, right? God doesn't just take like a little, You think a sacrifice, I just made a little sacrifice. Well, maybe it was little now, but they grow. A real, true sacrifice for the will of God, it grows, it always grows. Sometimes little tainted, little half-hearted sacrifices we make. Well, I don't know what, it's murky, but an honest, pure, authentic sacrifice to do good when it costs always yields something so much bigger. So not only does Ruth end up in this basically the best relationship she's ever going to have, she ends up with the greatest mother-in-law she's ever going to have, just as tight as can be. She ends up with a son. She ends up with a standing in a community that she walked in as a foreigner. And now there's a family, but not just any family, but a family that has the kind of faith spark to catalyze future generations that yield the kind of grandson that walks out onto a field in front of giants and said, it's wrong that the people that represent God be cowards. I don't care how tall I am. See, when we hear sacrifice, we always think cost. Always. Cost, sacrifice, sacrifice, cost. Cost, cost, cost. We hate cost. We forget to look to the other side. We forget what God uses sacrifices to accomplish. You look at every major transformative event of not only your life, but just to look at the history accounts of the Bible, the stories as they play out, the grand scheme. Sacrifice is God's vehicle for transformation. I mean, Jesus. Jesus. I don't imagine you're ever going to be in the position to scavenge for heads of barley in the dirt. I don't see it. I've been wrong before. You think, well, I don't see how this is relevant. Well, if you've ever been in a position where you have the opportunity to choose what's important to me versus what's important for them, that's this. That's this. And I don't know what you're facing. Maybe it's a certain kind of a fellowship. Maybe it's with your own children. Maybe your own children need you to be super, super present. Maybe they're adults, maybe adult children. They need you to be on the spot right now in this season because something, something really went wrong, or something, they just going through a traumatic situation and they don't know how to process it, and you recognize, somebody needs to be super, super present with these guys right now. But then you got all this other stuff raging on around you, That's the situation. Maybe you've got a friend or a special ministry or something in front of you, someone to work with you in that ministry, and you're like all excited about it. And then, well, my job is asking me to do this, or my career over here is changing, and, they're telling me, and you probably don't even think about it this way till I said it, but you actually have a choice to make. You're like, I don't have any choice. There could be a choice. Somebody in your life just needs you to be there. Maybe somebody in your group just needs somebody to show up and ask about them and show up unexpectedly. You ever have that happen to you? Somebody just showed up unexpectedly because they cared. Isn't that memorable when they did that? It is. I don't know. I do know that your temptation is just to look at the cost of it. Say, you know what, I've been busy all week. I've been out 3 nights already. It's just too bad. I'm telling you, there's always this temptation of the cost. Well, if I do that, I'm not going to be able to afford the thing that we were talking about doing, and the thing, like. But what if they just need somebody to give them that car, or that money, or that time, or you fill in the blank. You know what it is. But the cost. But what is on the other side of the sacrifice? Don't forget to weigh it. Because if it's really God convicting you, if it's really God that's just gnawing at you, keep remembering, they're in that pain. They really need me to be there. Oh, my God. I'm telling you, if God is just relentless about this thing, take your eyes off the cost for a moment and just imagine what's on the other side of that sacrifice. You're like, I don't know what's on the other side. That's my point. Amen. You have no idea. You have no idea. We're going to take communion this morning. And I'm going to invite the team on up. Come on, guys, when you're ready. Pastor James, how are you going to relate this to communion? Not that hard, actually. See, Jesus, on the night of his arrest, is going to have this special time with them. And it's special to him. They don't really understand because they don't get it. The concept of a Savior sacrificing himself, of God himself sacrificing himself, is just foreign to them. How could anybody important sacrifice? That doesn't make any sense, but he's been talking all these riddles and mysteries. I'm going to die. I'm going to be raised back. What? Stop talking like that, Jesus. But the night of its beginning, he gives them a picture. And he pulls out bread and breaks it, and pulls out wine and says, this is basically like my blood that's going to be spilled. And they can't appreciate it yet. But they will.